May 21, 1943. The North Atlantic. Coordinates 50 degrees north, 35 degrees west. The ocean here is not just water. It is a shifting, gray mountain range of freezing swells that can crush a steel hull as easily as an eggshell. This is the Black Pit, the air gap, the terrifying stretch of the mid-Atlantic where land-based bombers from Newfoundland and Iceland cannot reach. Here, the sky is empty, and the water belongs entirely to the Kriegsmarine. Inside the pressure hull of U-569, the air is thick enough to chew. It smells of diesel fumes, unwashed bodies, moldy bread, and the metallic tang of fear masked by discipline. Oberleutnant Hans Johansen grips the handles of the attack periscope, his cap pushed back on his head, sweat beading on his forehead despite the freezing temperatures of the Atlantic depths. He rotates the scope slowly, scanning the horizon. Through the optics, the gray waves dance. He is hunting convoy ON-184. He expects destroyers fast, annoying, but manageable, he expects. Corvettes slow, undergunned, pathetic. But what he sees makes him pause. Then a smirk touches his lips. Identify, he calls out to his executive officer. Large silhouette, flat top, boxy structure. It isn't a battleship. It isn't one of the terrifying, fast fleet carriers like the Enterprise or the Yorktown. This thing looks like a floating barn. It wallows in the heavy swells, rolling uncomfortably, looking top-heavy and clumsy. It's a merchant ship, a C-3 cargo hull that someone has welded a flat flight deck onto. It looks improvised. Cheap. It's a Hilfstreger, Johansen mutters, stepping back from the scope, an auxiliary carrier, a jeep. The German crews have jokes for these ships. They call them Woolworth Carriers, implying they were bought at a discount store. The Americans have their own grim nicknames for the designation CVE, combustible, vulnerable, expendable. To the U-boat commanders, who have spent the last 3 years ravaging Allied shipping in this gap, the arrival of such a slow target isn't a threat, it's an insult. It's target practice. Johansen lowers the scope. Down periscope, set course to intercept. They've sent us a sitting duck. Above the surface, aboard that sitting duck, the USS Bogue, CVE-9, Captain Giles E. Short stands on the bridge fighting the role of the ship. The Bogue is indeed small. She displaces just under 10,000 tons, a fraction of a fleet carrier's mass. Her top speed is a sluggish 18 knots. If a U-boat catches her on the surface, she cannot run. She has no heavy armor belts. A single torpedo could break her spine. But Captain Short isn't here to run. He looks out at the flight deck. It's pitifully short, less than 500 feet. In the heavy Atlantic heave, the deck pitches up and down like a seesaw. To land a plane here requires nerves of steel and a death wish. Yet lined up on that wet, heaving wood are the tools of the reversal, the Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters and the hulking TBF Avenger torpedo. Bombers. The men on the deck are freezing, their parkas soaked with spray. They are not the elite of the Pacific Fleet. They are reservists, draftees, boys from Iowa and Brooklyn who learned to fly on sunny fields and are now staring at the most hostile ocean on Earth. Skipper, the voice crackles over the squawk box. It's the Combat Information Center, CIC. Huff Duff has a fix, high-frequency transmission, close, very close. Huff Duff, high-frequency direction finding. The Germans believe their Enigma-encoded messages are safe. But they don't realize that every time they burst transmit a report back to Donitz in Berlin, the Allies can triangulate the source of the radio wave. Captain Short picks up the mic. His voice is calm, betraying none of the tension that tightens his gut. The convoy is miles away. The Bogue is not hugging the merchant ships for protection. She is doing something new, something the Germans haven't seen yet. She isn't an escort, she is a hunter. Launch. The ready group, Short orders. Let's see what's out there. On the deck, the prop of an Avenger coughs, spits blue smoke, and roars to life. The sound is deafening, drowning out the wind. The pilot revs the engine, holding the brakes, feeling the ship drop into a trough. He has to time it perfectly. Launch when the bow rises or plunge into the sea. The ship groans as it climbs a wave. Go, 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 the deck officer signals. The Avenger lurches forward, heavy with depth charges. It rumbles down the short wooden runway, the engine screaming. It drops off the edge of the bow, disappearing from view for a heart-stopping second before clawing its way back up into the gray sky. Down below, Oberleutnant Johansen is calculating firing solutions for a surface torpedo attack on the merchant ships tonight. He believes he is invisible. He believes the air belongs to the birds. He believes the Jeep Carrier is nothing more than a slow prize to be claimed later. He is wrong, the gap is closing. May 22, 1943, 4,000 feet above the Atlantic. Lieutenant Junior Grade William Chamberlain fights the stick of his TBF Avenger. The air up here is turbulent, buffeting the heavy bomber like a child's kite. Beside him, flying wingman in a stubby F-4F Wildcat, is Ensign Roberts. They have been patrolling for 3 hours. The fuel gauges are tapping the red. The coffee they drank in the ready room has turned to acid in their stomachs. The ocean below is a mesmerizing quilt of whitecaps. It plays tricks on the eyes. Every breaking wave looks like a surfaced submarine. Every shadow looks like a hull. Chamberlain blinks, forcing his eyes to refocus. Then he sees it. It isn't a wave. It's a hard, straight line cutting through the chaotic, organic shapes of the sea. A white wake trailing behind a gray steel cigar. "Tally-ho," Chamberlain screams into the radio, his voice cracking with adrenaline. "Submarine, 2 o'clock, surfaced, Roberts take the flak." Down on the surface, U-569 is cruising comfortably. The hatches are open. The crew is venting the foul air of the boat, recharging the massive battery banks that power their electric motors. Oberleutnant Johansen is on the conning tower, binoculars resting on his chest, breathing in the salt air. He feels untouchable. They are hundreds of miles from the nearest Allied airfield. The lookout scream tears through the peace. "Flieger, alarm, alarm." Johansen snaps his head up. The sound hits him a split second later, the guttural, terrifying roar of a Wright Cyclone radial engine. It's a sound that shouldn't exist here. It belongs over London or Malta or the coast of France. Not here, not in the middle of nowhere. He sees the Wildcat first. It's diving at a steep angle, smoke puffing from its wings. "Dive, dive, clear the bridge," Johansen bellows, throwing himself toward the hatch. But it's too late for a graceful exit. The ocean around the U-boat erupts into geysers of white spray as .50 caliber. Rounds stitch a line across the water. The bullets hammer against the steel of the conning tower, sounding like hail on a tin roof. Sparks fly. The flak gunners on the lower platform don't even have time to uncap their weapon before they are scrambling for the safety of the pressure hull. As the Wildcat pulls up, screaming over the top of the tower, the real threat arrives. Chamberlain levels the Avenger out at 200 feet. He is so close he can see the wet rust on the U-boat's deck. He waits, 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 until the gray hull fills his entire windscreen. Bombs away. 4 depth charges tumble from the belly of the Avenger. They don't look like much, just metal canisters, but they are set for shallow depth. They splash into the water in a perfect bracket pattern, 2 on the port side, 2 on the starboard, straddling the diving sub. Inside U-569, the hatch slams shut. The klaxon is wailing. The boat is tilting steeply, trying to claw its way down to the safety of the deep. Boom, 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 boom. The Atlantic transmits shockwaves better than air. The explosions deliver a hydrostatic hammer blow to the submarine's hull. Inside, the world disintegrates. The lights shatter, plunging the control room into darkness, illuminated only by the sparks of dying electrical panels. A high-pressure airline ruptures with a shriek that pierces eardrums. Men are thrown from their feet, slamming into valves and bulkheads. Johansen drags himself up from the oily deck plates. The boat is shuddering violently, like a dying animal. "Report," he coughs through the acrid smoke. "Water entry aft. Batteries are cracking. We have chlorine gas." The terror in the engineer's voice is primal. Chlorine gas, created when salt water mixes with battery acid, is a slow, choking death. The depth charges haven't just rattled them, they have broken the U-boat's back. The Hunter, the apex predator of the Atlantic Gap, is now bleeding out. "Blow all ballast tanks," Johansen orders, his voice trembling with rage and disbelief. Surface, surface, abandoned ship. Above, Chamberlain banks his Avenger around to survey the damage. He expects to see an oil slick, or perhaps nothing at all. Instead, he sees the bow of U-569 shoot out of the water at a steep angle, breaching like a whale, before slapping back down onto the surface. The hatches pop open. Tiny figures spill out onto the deck, waving their arms, jumping into the freezing water. They are not manning the guns. They are surrendering. Chamberlain keys his mic, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Blue base, this is Fox leader. Scratch one bandit. I repeat, scratch one bandit. On the bridge of the Bogue, the radio transmission is piped through the loudspeakers. A cheer goes up from the bridge crew, wild and raucous. But Captain Short doesn't cheer. He walks to the map table. He picks up a grease pencil and draws a red X over the estimated position of the U-boat. This wasn't luck, this was a system, and they are just getting started. June 12, 1943, the Central Atlantic, Wolfpack Trutt's operations area. The hunt has evolved. It is no longer a game of cat and mouse. It is a game of ghosts and machines. Deep in the Combat Information Center of the Bogue, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and the hum of vacuum tubes. Men in headsets hunch over glowing oscilloscopes. They are listening to the invisible screech of the German war machine. Bearing 220, a radio operator calls out, pressing his headphones tighter against his ears. Short signal, high frequency, it's a rendezvous beacon. This is Huff Duff in action. A U-boat miles away has broken radio silence for less than 3 seconds to coordinate a refueling maneuver. In 1940, that burst would have been lost in the static. Now, triangulated by the Bogue and her escort destroyers, it is a death sentence. Vector the Avengers, Captain Short orders. He doesn't look at the ocean, he looks at the geometry of the intercept. They're gathering for a milk run. Miles away, the massive Type XB mine layer U-118 floats lazily on the surface. She is a beast of a submarine, designed to lay mines off New York, but today she is acting as a tanker, refueling smaller attack boats. Her commander, Korvettenkapitän Werner Seezigen, feels exposed. The sky is bright, the visibility endless. Fuel transfer complete in 10 minutes, his executive officer reports. Make it 5, Seezigen snaps. He has a bad feeling. The Jeep carrier groups have been spooking them for weeks. The old tactics, surfacing at night, recharging, running fast on the diesel engines, are becoming suicidal. Then the lookout screams. Aircraft, starboard bow, closing fast. It's happening again. The drone of the engines. The dark specks growing into the terrified shapes of Avengers and Wildcats. Emergency dive, clear the deck, cut the hoses. The refueling lines are severed, spewing precious diesel into the sea. The crew scrambles down the ladder. Boots ringing on steel. The hatches spun shut. The vents hiss open, and U-118 begins her desperate slide beneath the waves. Inside, the crew holds their breath. They watch the depth gauge, 20 meters, 40 meters, 60 meters. They are deep now. They are safe from machine gun fire. They are safe from rockets. They brace for the depth charges, the loud, crushing crump that usually follows an air attack. But the explosions don't come. Instead, silence. Sound check, Seezigen whispers to the hydrophone operator, a young man named Mueller who looks like he's going to vomit. Mueller presses the rubber cups to his ears. He listens for the splash of canisters. He listens for the destroyer's screws. His eyes go wide. Sir, I hear a propeller. A destroyer. No, sir, too fast, too high-pitched, it sounds like a hornet. Above them, Lieutenant J.G. Stearns of the Bogue's composite squadron hasn't dropped a depth charge. He has dropped a cylinder painted with a yell. Nose and a black tail, it's the Mark 24 mine, code name Fido. It is the first American acoustic homing torpedo. Stearns circles above, watching the weapon splash into the water. He doesn't need to aim. He just needs to be close. As soon as Fido hits the water, it begins a circular search pattern. Its microphone ears are listening. They aren't listening for the ocean. They are listening for the cavitation of U-118's screws as it tries to run. Down in the dark, Mueller screams, ripping the headphones off. It's turning, it's following us, torpedo in the water, bearing constant. Hard to port, full speed. Seezeigen roars, panic finally cracking his voice. The U-boat groans as it banks, the electric motors whining at maximum output. But the whining is exactly what the Fido wants. It locks onto the frequency. It adjusts its rudder. It chases the sound like a bloodhound on a scent. The hunter has become the prey in a way no sailor has ever experienced. The impact is not a crump. It is a metallic clang, followed instantly by a catastrophic detonation against the pressure hull. The explosion rips the stern off U-118. The lights die instantly. The ocean rushes in, a solid wall of freezing water moving faster than a train. There is no time for damage control. There is no time for bravery. The sheer physics of the Atlantic crush the boat in seconds. On the surface, a massive bubble of oil and debris burps up from the depths. Lieutenant Stearns tips his wing, looking down at the expanding slick. "Splash one," he radios back to the Bogue. No visual on the survivor, just oil. Back on the carrier, the mood has shifted from anxiety to a grim industrial efficiency. The Jeep carrier isn't just surviving the gap, it is scrubbing it clean. The U-boat crews, once the gray wolves who laughed at the convoys, are now realizing a terrifying truth. The ocean is bugged. The sky is watching. And the clumsy, ugly, slow little Bogue is the angel of death. August 25th, 1943, the Mid-Atlantic Gap, the former Black Pit. Captain Giles Short stands on the bridge wing of the USS Bogue, shielding his eyes against the summer glare. The ocean is calm today, a flat expanse of deep blue. But it isn't the water that holds his attention, it is the horizon. Stretching as far as the eye can see from the port beam to the starboard quarter is a procession of steel. Liberty ships, tankers, troop transports. Hundreds of thousands of tons of American industrial might chugging eastward at a slow, steady 10 knots. They are carrying Sherman tanks, P-51 Mustangs, millions of gallons of aviation fuel, and enough spam to feed an army. And they are untouched. For 3 days, the Bogue's sonar operators have listened to nothing but the ambient noise of the ocean and the thrum of friendly propellers. The wolves are gone. In Berlin, Grand Admiral Karl Donitz, the architect of the U-boat war, stares at a map that has become a graveyard. The reports on his desk are a litany of disasters: U-118 lost, U-217 lost, U-527 lost. The list goes on, a hemorrhage of iron and trained men that Germany cannot replace. He picks up a pen and writes a directive that signals the end of the Battle of the Atlantic. "The losses," he writes, "have reached an unbearable height." He orders the withdrawal. The Wolfpacks are pulled back from the North Atlantic. They retreat to the coast, to the Bay of Biscay, anywhere away from the terrifying reach of the Jeep carriers. The Bogue, the ship they mocked as a Woolworth Carrier, has done the impossible. She was built on a merchant hull in a fraction of the time it takes to build a destroyer. She has no heavy guns. She has no armor. Yet in her short tour of duty, her hunter-killer group has sunk 11 German submarines. Her sister ships, the Corps, the Card, the Sentee, are racking up similar scores. The Sea Jeep was supposed to be a stopgap, a desperate measure. Instead, it became the most cost-effective weapon of the naval war. Back on the flight deck, a mechanic wipes grease from his hands and leans against the fuselage of a Wildcat. He watches a massive troop transport slide past, its decks crowded with soldiers waving across the water. Those men are heading to England. In 10 months, they will be storming the beaches of Normandy. They will get there because the ocean is no longer a graveyard. The mechanic pats the side of the plane. It looks small against the backdrop of the massive convoy. The Bogue looks insignificant compared to the battleships of the Pacific. But as the convoy steams east, carrying the invasion force that will liberate Europe, the truth is undeniable. The victory wasn't won by the biggest guns or the fastest ships. It was won by a converted cargo ship that refused to be a target. It was won by the Jeep that swept the Zeros and the U-boats from the board. The Atlantic is secure. The bridge is open. and the end of the Third Reich is now just a matter of logistics.